As it happened, yes, indeed, as it indeed did happen, Saturday of the 29th of July 2023 was the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show. And I certainly did happily attend it that very day, alongside my best friend David Scott, too. So, I was quite happy, and certainly was it a successful classic car show event where I happily attended it. Various classic cars of all different manufactured makes and different shapes and sizes, and it took place in the Worthing Steam Gardens, which is where the annual Worthing Minis by the Sea car show event takes place. The Worthing Steam Gardens, as well as where the Worthing Sunny Sunday Revival and American Custom Car Show takes place every year too. And though it was brilliant, certainly was I happy with attending the event, the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show, but the only irritating thing is that though classic cars are enchanting, the small ones, I'm afraid, as I might have said before, they are not built for people who are over a certain height, that is, and that's the case of myself. You know, but I mean, it's different once you're inside it, but it's to clamber it inside and out is the tricky part with the small classic cars with the roof built over, and if you are over a certain height, if you were taller than, say, 5'6", you know, it would certainly make things quite tricky to clamber inside and out of a small classic car with a roof built over, and I've experienced this various times myself. I mean, standing at 5'8" in height and 11 stone in weight, well, 11 stone or 154 pounds in weight, I am not exactly small, just to say. But David Scott, my best friend, on the other hand, he could clamber inside and out of a small classic car easily. I can easily clamber inside and out of the larger classic cars, whether it's a large, well, not surprisingly, a lot of the American classic cars I've seen are surprisingly huge old cars for the year it was built. Well, you know, it's not completely surprising, but my apologies if it was a culturally offensive thing to have said. You know. Oh, sorry about the interval. Sorry, wait a moment. Yes, sorry about the interval, everybody. I had to get Daphne inside because there was cat conflict between herself and Jasper. Jasper, by the way, is a cat who loves nothing more than picking on my Daphne and Nixie, and as well as picking on my neighbour's cat Bertie. Not good. And I had to get Daphne inside because of the cat conflict, because when I was representing the video earlier on, before I had to pause it off to put the interval break in, I had to get Daphne in because I heard her yowling. She was like, because of naughty Jasper, I'm afraid. You know. But getting to the point on classic cars, all classic cars are completely enchanted. You know, you do get, I didn't say earlier on, before I had the interval, I'm not saying that all British classic cars are small, or all American classic cars are huge. I'm not saying that whatsoever, not in the slightest. The ones I've seen, yes, they are big, but I'm not saying that all of them are huge within that particular foreign make, you know. But, yes. Although I can clamber inside and out of a small classic convertible where there's no roof on it, but the only thing I do have to be careful of is not falling face first into the gearbox or in the pedals, that's all. But other than that, I can clamber it inside and out of a convertible fairly easily. But if it's a small one, I just have to be careful not to fall, not to fall face first into the gear stick or the pedals because of my height and weight. Oh dear. Never mind. Oh dear. Yes, oh dear. But it was a day of meeting not just myself and David Scott happily hanging around together, but also, and not just because of the classic cars themselves, but you know, meeting new people and all that, and meeting other classic car owners. And I met a very notable classic car owner. It was a female, I think it was a couple, although the husband I didn't really talk to, but it was the wife I happily spoke to, who's a much loved mother and a much loved grandmother as well. And she had quite a large, possessive ownership of a large British classic car. Well, and also she and her dearly loved husband have possessive ownership of some American classic cars as well, according to her, which surprised me greatly. And I had to share with her when she said, well, I don't think she has small classic cars because she wasn't short, the older lady. She was quite tall. I mean, but I think in her younger days she did give me this surprising revelation, and she did tell me that she was a full 6 foot as a young lady, which quite surprised me greatly. Because if you think about it, a lot of people on average were shorter. I mean, taller people were not unheard of, but people were generally shorter back in her day, even though taller individuals were not unheard of. And she was like, because of hers and her dearly loved husband's tall height, it was because they did not have possessive ownership of a small classic car, because of it being tricky to clamber inside and out, which could explain why they had the large classic car. I think she was 6 feet, the lady, which is about when I saw her, well, she said she'd shrunk. I would assume probably about 5'11", something like that, but still quite tall, especially in particular for a lady back in her younger days. Not saying this to be discriminatory, but this was a reasonably obvious noticeable fact, really, that people were generally shorter back in those days, and that was, in a way, more astonishing back then, to have a lady of her height, you know. Well, she wasn't, not only was she quite a bit taller than myself, but she was certainly a lot bigger than myself too, not surprisingly. You know, but she had to be, 2 stones bigger than myself at least. She wasn't, well, maybe a little bit overweight, but I'd say slightly overweight, but she was generally, reasonably heavy set and slightly overweight at the same time, but generally reasonably heavy set and really generally just a big lady, is how I would say. Not as big as Brian Blessed, but reasonably big build, reasonably big body, reasonably big structure, that's how I'd describe her. Well, she was certainly much bigger than my mother as well, as my mother's not very big as a person either. Bit like me, well, nothing like her, but she's not very big. Probably, in a way, about a stone smaller than myself, is how I describe her. Well, she is also shorter, not to mention. But she, on the other hand, as could all of my mother's brothers and sisters, my aunties and uncles, they could all easily clamber inside and out of a small and a large classic car. It would not be any trouble for them, since they did not exceed a certain height, and they didn't even reach my height. Never mind, Although they do have, most of them have the big feet, which could explain why I have reasonably big size 8 UK shoe size, or 9 US shoe size, that is, generally because of genetics, which I think is the reason behind it, but it happens, as we all know it. But she was, though tall, and quite of a reasonably, of a slightly overweight and reasonably heavy set build. She was a lovely lady, and she didn't mind having a conversed conversation with me, She was like, it's like, we're all nice around here. And I was like, I think I did talk before, I've never said this before, but if I were to attend a classic car rally, say, before I encountered David Scott, for example, it was a good meet we had, but I don't think she was going there just to represent her classic car, she and her dearly loved husband. This is the tall, elderly lady I was referring to, with the possessive ownership of the large British classic car, which was bigger than certainly much bigger, or possibly nearly twice the size of the small British classic cars and all that, or any of the small classic cars I had seen. I don't think she went just because of the rally, but just for her own hers and her husband's own enjoyment. I think they went on a family occasion, because I think, as she was telling me, as far as I'm remotely certain, I think it was her son who went as well, and also her daughter, and one of her grandchildren, I think. So I saw them as well, but didn't talk to them either. Oh, never mind. Oh well, I mean, I'm more open and more inclined to having conversed conversations with people I've never met before at these classic car events, but in the past I was far less inclined to, unless somebody asked me a couple of questions, or said or asking, you enjoying the rally and all that? Say a few things, say some friendly stuff and all that, and then leave it at that. Whereas now I'm much more inclined to having friendly, conversed conversations with new people I've never even met before. And once the conversation is over, I end up wishing we were friends a very long time before the events of the very event. It's a wonderful effect it can have on people, these classic car events, Really, the effect is just moving and astonishing, I'm sure for those of you who are classic car owners and have taken your classic car to a classic car show, I'm sure you felt the similar effect, or if you've attended one as a spectator, I'm sure you felt a reasonably similar effect, really. All right, yes. But we had a reasonably long conversation. It was about 5 minutes, about 5 or 6 minute conversation, something like that. And, but because they were just about to go, but they weren't going to go immediately after I spoke to her, but it was about 5 or 10 minutes after we'd finished having a conversation together, they all left. But I gave them a wave as the car went, and it was the son, I think, who was sat in the front seat, stuck his thumbs up at me and smiled. And I think the lady who was sitting in the back seat, her husband was in the front seat. I think she was in the back seat with one of her grandchildren, I think, something like that. She gave me a wave. I don't think the grandson did, because I think he was just focused on going back home. And never mind, it's what happens. Different children take different interests, that is as truth has it. Or different people take different interests, that is as truth has it. And I also, when I was at the event itself, I also had the privilege of sitting inside a classic convertible, a red convertible. I sat inside. The owner of the convertible shot the photograph for me. It was a small convertible, so though it was easy to clamber inside and out, I had to, because of my height and weight, I just had to be careful not to fall face first into the gear stick or the pedals on the floor of the driver's seat of the car. Oh no, another additional disadvantage. No. Oh dear. Oh no. So, yes, I had to take that carefully into account, but I did sit in the seat, And the lady who I gave my camera to shoot my photograph shot the picture for me. I looked at it and I was greatly pleased with it, and I thanked her for it. And it was her mother who was sat in the passenger seat next to me in the photograph. You know, and I cherish the photograph very, very much. I really do. And I would really like one day, if, say, for example, there was a classic car convention event, a convention, you know, not just classic car events where you spectate and look at and observe classic cars and all that, but a convention, you know, where you can, you know, like signing autographs and things, and like you're also talking about the history of certain classic cars and all that. I would like to show my photograph of me sitting in the convertible to future generations one day in the future, but we never know. It could happen. It might happen, it might not. Classic car conventions, we never know. We never know. But yes, without further ado, let's see the telephone pictures, the picture shot on my telephone, my smart telephone that is, of the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show rolling into action.
A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. His energetic fist should be ready to resist a dictatorial word. His nose should pan, and his lips should curl. His cheek should flame, and his brow should turn. His bosom should heave, and his heart should glow. And his fist be ever ready for a knock. His nose should bend, and his lips should curl. His cheek should flame, and his brow should turn. His bosom should heave, and his heart should glow. And his fist be ever ready for a knock down low. His eyes should flash with an inborn fire, his brow with scorn be wrung. He never should bow down to a domineering frown, or the tang of a tyrant's tongue. His foot should stamp, and his throat should growl. His hair should twirl, and his face should scowl. His eyes should flash, and his breast and this should be his customary attitude. His foot should stamp, and his throat should growl. His hair should twirl, and his face should scowl. His eyes should flash, and his breast protrude, and this should be his customary attitude. His attitude, his attitude, his attitude.
Classic car shows are always highly enchanting events oneself could happily attend to. They most certainly are indeed. Thanks everybody for watching, and I shall certainly see you in the very next video. And here is the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show 2024 event proceedings. I, for one, am certainly most excited about reprising my presence at the Worthing Lions Classic Car Show 2024 event proceedings, if I can make it, that is. But if it, say, for example, coincides with a Hove Park Miniature Railway running day, I would just go there very first thing, but then leave at a certain time to get to the Hove Park Miniature Railway at their reasonably earliest time, you know. But yes. But you know, I would work it out that way, and I think it would make good sense, you know. But that's if I can make it to the 2024 Worthing Lions Classic Car Show event, that is, you know. Thanks everybody for watching, and I shall certainly see you in the very next video. Ta-ta, another time. From Foxy. Oh.